Last couple of days I've posted two videos, one on Florida and one on Pennsylvania, looking at registration numbers and actual voting statistics going back to 2008 in an effort to project what's likely to happen in 2020. In this video, I'm moving on to a third swing state, important state, North Carolina, a place where I lived for about a quarter of a century. In 2008, Barack Obama carried North Carolina, but barely. It was very close. McCain almost got as many votes. It was just a few tens of thousands of votes. It was a really close election in North Carolina. What's amazing is that the Democrats had a registration advantage over the Republicans of 900,000 votes, just short of 1 million. And yet they won by, I don't know, it was 20 or 30,000 votes. It was really close. So right away you can see that voter registration numbers in North Carolina don't relate directly, in a direct sense, to voter turnout at election time. Remember, this is a state that's nominally Democratic, but they also sent Jesse Helms to the Senate repeatedly. And remember, this is a state that 2 years later in 2010 would basically be taken over by the Republican Party. The 2012 election is very interesting. Obama lost North Carolina. Now in 2081, he had about 2.1 million votes, was some change, and McCain had about the same with less change. So Obama won. In 2012, the Republicans had closed the registration gap by about 100,000. Barack Obama pulled another 2.1 million votes. So he did just as well as he did in 2008. But this time Romney beat him by 100,000 votes. Where did those 100,000 votes come from? The 100,000 shift in registration from Democrats to Republicans. The Republicans had closed the gap from 900,000 to 800,000, which isn't a lot. But 100,000 votes was enough to swing North Carolina in 2012 to Romney, despite the fact that overwhelmingly, countrywide, nationwide, Barack Obama did get a second term. If we move on to 2012, you see the same exact pattern. The Republicans closed the registration gap by another 100,000 votes. Hillary Clinton pulled 2.1 million votes, plus a little bit. The same that Obama had drawn in 2012 and 2008. Republicans this time won by 200,000 votes. They captured the state in 2012. They do it again in 2016, again by about another 100,000 votes. So this shift in registration, you can see, is relating to what happens on election day. And Republicans carry the state again. So what's happened over the past 4 years? Remember, again, the narrative is Democrats are getting stronger. People are turning against Trump because he's uncouth. He's, this, that, the other thing, unprofessional, unpresidential, all these things. People are turning away, even Republicans, from Donald Trump. Maybe. Registration has shifted during the Trump administration dramatically. Remember, between 2008 and 2012, Democrats lost 100,000 of their 900,000 vote registered voter edge. By 2016, they had lost 200,000 of that edge. Since 2016 to today, they've lost 300,000 in 4 years. The previous 8 years, they lost 200,000 of it. They've since lost another 3. So they're basically down 500,000. Now, if you look at the previous two elections, which, well, if you look at all the way back to 2008, McCain barely lost. Romney won by about 100,000. Trump won by 200,000. And since then, 300,000 people have shifted from Democrat to Republican, or new people coming into the state are registering as Republicans, or probably some combination of both. To me, there's no way Joe Biden wins North Carolina. If you just look at the numbers and you look at the trends, you would predict that Trump, having won by 200,000, will probably win by 4, 5, maybe even 600,000 this time in North Carolina. That's what the numbers suggest. And that's, bad news for Biden. That's, you're looking at a disaster. Now you've got Florida, you've got Pennsylvania, and you've got North Carolina, all swing states, all looking, to me at least, and again, as I keep saying, I am not Nate Silver, but just looking at voting trends, looking at registration trends, and looking at the correlation between the two, and they do seem to move in conjunction. They go down 100,000, Democrats lose 100,000 registered voters, and the Republicans gain 100,000 votes. And you can see that in these elections, one after the other. They've since 2016 lost 300,000 more. Are we going to see 300,000 more Republican voters? The polls are saying no, you're not going to see that. Again, I'll ask the same question I asked with regard to Florida and Pennsylvania. If Republicans are turning against Trump, or people are turning against Trump in general, if you're a Democrat or an unregistered voter or a new voter coming into the state and you hate Donald Trump, why are you registering as a Republican? Because Republican registrations are up dramatically. Like I said, it went 8 years under Obama, it dropped 200,000. 4 years under Trump, it's shot up 300,000. So you got a total of 500,000 voters in North Carolina have shifted party allegiance. And remember, in 2008, when Obama had just short of 1 million registered voter edge over McCain, he won by a handful of votes. It was a close election. It could have gone either way. And since then, they've lost 500,000, 500,000 of that edge. How does Biden win? I don't care what the polls say. You just look at the situation there, and you see what's happened. And you see what's happened in North Carolina since 2010. I mean, the Republicans took over that state. It was a shock. I lived there at the time. I mean, people, Democrats I knew, progressives, were in shock. I mean, Republicans are taking North Carolina? North Carolina was supposed to be the most progressive of the northern, of the southern states, the northern tier of the southern states. It wasn't like the Deep South. It was more progressive. It was more thoughtful. It was more, progressive, as they always like to think of themselves. And suddenly they're taken over by the Republicans for the first time since Reconstruction. You hadn't seen Republicans take over the institutions of government in the state since, it was the 1870s or something. Not since the Democrats came back and used the Klan to suppress the African American vote and to secure their own power, which lasted until 2010. Until 2010, they got away with that and the residue of it. But it was shattered in 2010. And the trend has not stopped. And again, as we see in the other states, this isn't something that just happened. It's not, Russian collusion or Hillary ran a bad campaign. If you look at these trends, they go back to the election of Barack Obama. I think my last video, I have a little meme I made where, it's him saying he's done more for the Republican Party since anybody since Lincoln. And I think that was true. I think eventually when this all sorts itself out and, if we start looking back at the political history of the last, 20 years, if historians are capable of doing that anymore in a kind of objective fashion, they'll see that the election of Barack Obama set off something in this country that led to the demise, in many ways, politically, of the Democratic Party. Now, I don't know how long that's going to continue. And I'm sure that they'll do that. They'll make that analysis and they'll say it's racism. Everything's racism. But you have to remember, these are the same people who've been shifting allegiance to the Republicans who voted for an African-American president in 2008. And I know a lot of them. They voted, I was there in North Carolina at the time. They voted with hope. I think I said in the last video, I almost voted for Obama myself. I was really tempted to. I filled out the whole ballot. And I just left the one thing unchecked. And that was Obama or McCain. And I knew McCain was going to lose. So I thought, maybe I should just vote for Obama. Maybe he won't be, too socialist. Maybe he'll be a good president. Maybe there'll be racial healing. Maybe we'll all pull together. Maybe it'll be good for the country. But, I thought about Jeremiah Wright and some of the other things that Obama was connected to, and I said, no, I can't do it. So I voted for McCain. But I don't think I'm the only person who thinks like that. I know I'm not. And I'm not in North Carolina. And I think that's what's been happening since 2008. That's the real story here. This Russian collusion crap is just hiding it. It's being suppressed because they don't want to admit that they're losing ground. And not just because of Trump. This goes back 12 years, which is a long time. It's not an eternity, and it doesn't mean it will happen forever. Things swing back and forth. But right now, if you look at Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Florida, you have three very different states. Pennsylvania's up north, North Carolina's in the south, but it's sort of in the center of the country, and then you got Florida is south. I mean, where's that? Cuba, or I guess Puerto Rico, we make it a state, that'll be further south. But right now, these are three very different states, all showing the same trends. And again, it's 6% of the states. There's a lot of other states, and I've looked at some of the other states, I know they don't look anything like these states. I'm focusing on these states not because they're moving toward Republicans, but because they're the swing states. I mean, we know California is heading in what direction. We know that's going to be a blue state. So there's no point in looking at registration there. I mean, what's the difference? And even if the Republicans improve a little bit, they're still going to lose. The swing states are the important ones. And I think I'm going to do Arizona next. We'll see what happens there. Got something out of this video? Give it a thumbs up. Want to see more like this? Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification button so you know when I post new videos. Share the video if you can with your friends. And until the next time, stand tall, confront the resistance, and keep fighting. For those of you who ever wondered what those Korean characters are, that's the Korean word for basically fighting. They say fighting, resist, stand tall. Keep fighting. See you soon.